have the October 23rd Kilda Hills Board of Commissioners to order. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you will join me for a moment of silence, and as you do, you'll keep Jerry Freilich in your thoughts and prayers. He's having some minor surgery in the morning. With that, I ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, first item this evening is approval of the agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda with the following amendment, that we add a public comment before the new business of scheduling a public hearing.
Okay.
A second.
Great. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So for those of you, certainly in the audience, you're already aware that the different format tonight and why we're sitting here. For those of you who are watching our meeting and you're wondering what's different, typically with the public forums, we change where we're seated, so we are trying to create a more open environment where it isn't so formal, and so that's the purpose of us sitting here. We do have one item of formal business that we need to conduct, which is under new business, but as the agenda was just amended, we will have a time set aside right now for public comment. So if there's anyone that wishes to speak at public comment, and this would really be if you're speaking about the new business item number 1. Otherwise, we'll wait and get to everything else during the open forum. If you'll approach the lectern, please identify yourself by name and address. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and to speak before the matter that you are here for the short meeting. These new rules for the Board of Adjustment that the legislature has put out, I read them, the packet that came out, and I have been on the Board of Adjustment for 28 years, and I want to tell you that these rules are good. The state has really done a fine job of bringing together a mishmash of different counties and states, and I heartily encourage us to, I guess, join the flock, okay? And I know that you all are thoughtful and have had time to go over this, but I just want to tell you that in my years of being here, there's frequently questions about matters of what's right and what's wrong, and they have cleared all of this up. So that's all. I think this is a good piece of legislation that came from our legislature, and I realize you have to follow the format, but I think it's a good thing. So.
Thank you.
Oh, and I'm just speaking for myself, not for the zoning board or anything. Okay.
Thank you. And Richard, thank you for your 28 years of service on the zoning board of adjustment and chairing. How many of those years? You're the current chair and have been
I didn't count it all.
a number of years. And I had the pleasure of serving with Richard when I served on the zoning board of adjustment, and did a fabulous job. And thank you for your.
You've done very well. I just started you. I was elementary school. You're up to college now.
And I appreciate you coming out and speaking at public comment. That's great. Anyone else have anything? Okay, well, let's move on to new business item number 1, which is a proposed amendment to Chapter 153 zoning. This is to schedule the public hearing to remove sections 153.315 through section 153.334 and add new sections 153.320 through 153.325 to update regulations for the Board of Adjustment to comply with legislation recently adopted by the North Carolina General Assembly. And so we will be looking to schedule this public hearing at our November 14th Commissioners meeting. Or is it 13th?
14.
So it's the 13th.
It's the 13th.
See, the amendment says
We had it wrong in the
Sorry.
memo, excuse me.
Okay. So is there a motion?
I move that we schedule a public hearing for the proposed amendment to Chapter 153 at 5:30 on Monday to Wednesday, November the 14th. 13th.
This is really casual tonight.
Whenever. I'll second that.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to schedule the public hearing for Wednesday, November 13th at 5:30. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Thanks again, Richard. Okay. So now we're moving on to the public forum. And really, this is now your show. We have no agenda set, so it's really an opportunity for you all to ask questions of any topic that you want to either discuss with us or put on our radar to look into. So there could be items that we don't have an answer to, and it's on our radar to follow up and address. So,
And if we've done anything right, you can tell us.
is there anyone who's ready to get started? If so, I do ask, though, the first time that you're introducing a question or a comment, if you'll approach the podium and identify yourself by name and address, please. But if there's any follow-up back and forth, you can stay seated. You don't have to feel like you have to run up there each time. But at least each time we propose a new topic or discussion, it helps for the camera if you can go to the podium. So, who would like to get started?
Short meeting.
Wow.
I'll break the ice. There we go.
My name is Colleen Almany. I live at 113 Porthole Court. Obviously, we have an election coming up, so I want to just commend you guys. I know that you've had a rough road to hoe, and I think you've all been doing just a great job, so thank you for your service. I really just have a question about how, as a committee, you vote. There have been times and not so much with the Board of Commissioners, but with some of the other committees where a vote's called and some people vote yay, some people vote nay, some people don't vote at all. And I feel like if we have people that we've elected to serve, then we're expecting them to cast a vote, either for it or against it, so that we know kind of how we're being represented. And I know recently there's been a question because we had someone not vote, remain silent, and then there was some concern that, well, that's not what I meant. I know that a non-vote is recorded as a yes or in favor of, but I wonder, what are the guidelines and rules for that? And I guess just as a citizen, I would like to ask that if we've asked you to serve on our behalf, that you actually articulate a vote, either for or against whatever it is that's in front of you. Thanks.
Just to reiterate and clarify if anyone is not aware, we follow Robert's Rules of Order. And with that, basically, if you do not state a vote, for, if you remain silent during the voting time, then it's recorded as a yes. That's just the procedure. The only way to be recorded against a vote is to truly state nay or opposed or whatever when they call for that sign. I think your request, what you're asking, if I understood that correctly, is as a citizen, you would like to hear us state yes or no, either vote yes or no. And I can speak for me and I will do that. I appreciate you asking that, and I think it's a fair request.
And correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not positive on this, but I think in order to abstain from a vote technically, and I think I defer to the attorney on this, are you not supposed to have a vested
Right, you have to be excused by the board
You have to
from
be
voting on the
You
matter.
have to ask for a recuse.
Okay.
And it's a good question. To clarify on that too, do you have to recuse yourself and get permission prior to any discussion? You can't participate in the
Yes, you
discussion
can't
and
participate.
then ask for.
You can't participate at all.
Okay.
You have to leave the room even, right? You have to leave the room.
Well, that some people interpret it that way, others do not.
I think the rule of order is that you get to vote either yes, nay, or aye, or present. which is not a vote. And I think that there are very few, but there are instances where the present vote is appropriate. And I can understand why you would want people to vote yea or nay, but I also think that there are certain times when it may be appropriate to allow a commissioner to vote present. And, I think that we should allow the present rule to stand as it is.
And Bill, what you're saying, though, if you're voting present, that's going to be recorded as a
Yes.
yes.
Aye.
An aye.
Well, present, actually, I believe the way it works Mary can square us away on this, but if I say nothing, she will record present.
I'll record yes.
No, oh, she records yes, okay,
Yes, I
I
do.
thought she recorded present. But that's the same as saying present.
I think if someone does that, and I confess to having done it once, it may be, people may want to hear you vocalize it, but I think it's safe to assume that because you didn't say anything, you're on the other side of the issue. And sometimes if it's an issue that's been around before, and things got kind of inflamed, and you just don't want to rock the boat anymore, so you just, kind of stay out of, if your mind's totally made up, and you just stay out of the discussion pretty much, if you want. And then when it comes time, people can judge. I don't like to do it, but I think in just virtually any case, I would and I have, except for that one exception.
And I think that, because there are some of us who come to the meetings really regularly, and we're able to watch you go through the process, we could glean that information that you were against. But if I'm looking at the minutes and I'm not watching, and I see that everybody voted yes, then I'm going to assume that everybody actually did vote yes. That was my only point.
Yeah, well, there was something on one of the blogs after the vote I was referring to that, questioned my principles because I voted yes. But I understand, because that's how it's recorded, so I'll take the rap for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have something? Yes.
I have two items. They're loosely related, but not the same. So
Okay.
just
Do you
one at a
mind,
time.
you can put them both on the floor if you'd like, so you're not having to go back and forth. That would be fine. You just may address them separately.
I'm not here to get on the front page of the Coastland Times with Bobby. That was my 90-year-old mother was really delighted when I read that to her and explained it to her. Two items I want to talk about first: safety for cyclists and as it turns out, pedestrians. Anecdotally, there seems to be an increasing number of incidents in which cyclists are being harassed by local motorists. And I'm speaking not of just of KDH, I'm talking about the whole of the Outer Banks. One such incident happened recently in which a male driving a pickup harassed a female runner who was by herself, and she was able to get his license number. And when she discussed the incident with other people who run and cycle, she discovered that this same person has a series of harassments against cyclists. He's made it a habit. The incident was reported to several of the municipal police departments, including KDH. And I just parenthetically say I really have the highest confidence in our police department. And I understand KDH, and the incident happened in KDH, incidentally, and the KDH's police department are investigating. If these incidents continue, a cyclist and possibly a pedestrian or runner is going to be seriously injured or worse. Because if you don't put a stop to it, it builds and builds and builds, and then something really terrible can happen. Moreover, the people who are guilty of this behavior simply do not understand their behavior does and will have an impact on the Outer Banks economy if or when we get a bad reputation for runners or cyclists. I've talked about the economic impact of cycling at previous KDH Board of Commissioners meetings, but for the benefit of the current board and new members, and I see at least one is here now, and 2 new members will join the board after the next election, that in 2003, an NCDOT study revealed that at least a minimum $60 million had resulted on the economy of the Outer Banks because of cycling alone. And that's a very startling number. In the last 2 years, or in the last 10 years since that study was done, that's at least doubled. And you can tell that by just looking at the number of cyclists that come into the Outer Banks right now and the number of local people who are riding bicycles. With some focused work and support from the business community and the local governments, I believe that impact could increase tenfold. So we're probably talking in the range of $1 billion a year. This is not fanciful. I'm not exaggerating. This is not hyperbole. This can actually happen. It will not happen if we get a bad reputation. So that's the first item I have. The second item is the cycling infrastructure. There are a number of things that each municipal and the county government have done in recent years that has improved the infrastructure for cycling and walking. And you can see the concrete results of these in the various communities. I don't think one municipal government can be left out of that statement. But there are other activities that would benefit or could only be done if local governments work together. You cannot build a multimodal transportation system in an area unless all the local governments cooperate. And modal transportation system is what the United States is driving towards right now, and there's a lot of concrete steps being taken by federal government and the state governments across the country, and it kind of replicates what is happening in Europe right now. If this approach is to reach its full benefit, it must be done as a joint effort between local governments. I therefore urge the mayor and the mayor's colleagues to talk to other local governments and identify projects that should be done cooperatively. You can't build a network by isolating it to one community. And there are people such as myself and others that would be glad to sit down and give you what we think can be done and should be done. Okay.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks.
Any comments too?
Jack, what was the nature of the harassment? Was it running on the street instead of on the path, or what was it all
I
about?
mean, for the runner,
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I can find that information out. The harassment itself is the man screams at the runner, as it turns out, the cyclist.
mm-hmm,
He departs from his lane of travel
mm-hmm,
to make the harassment more concrete. And this young woman was by herself early in the morning.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, I just wondered what the nature of it was.
I can find that out.
Was she on a path and he was on the road, or were they
I'll
both on
find
the
that
road?
out.
Yeah.
And let the board know.
I didn't know if-
Basically, I received a call. It occurs early in the morning, and the motors, I believe it was a white van. Kind of go back and get the, but we give it that, and we're watching for it. It gets close,
according to what I was told, with the mirror to the people on there, and he's yelled at them as he goes by. But like I say, it's an occasional occurrence that I've explained to them if they could call us as soon as it happened, then we got more of a chance of stopping it. But if something's happened prior to us seeing it, there's not much we can do but just watch out for the vehicle and try to
So
prevent
it's
it.
happening on the roadway?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's another thing I should mention. Those of us that cycle and run in the Outer Banks, we have a pretty tight community. Surprisingly, it's quite a large community too. We have Facebook group pages, we have Google groups, and we communicate across these groups with each other. We feel that just out of self-protection, we're going to have to start identifying these people and put them up on social media to spread the word across the Outer Banks that these people have to be watched very carefully. Now, we're not going to do that until we talk to an attorney, make sure we don't do anything wrong. We're also not going to do this without first talking to the various police departments and our elected officials. But you need to know, we feel that we're beginning to be really threatened. And you can't allow this to go on for two reasons. The most important was we don't want people to get severely injured or hurt, because that will ruin the life of the person who's guilty of the offense as much as it will ruin the victim. And the second thing is, as I said in my statement, cycling and running has a huge impact on our community. We can't afford to lose that sort of income, especially when our fishing industry and recreational fishing is under such attack from the environmentalists.
My son-in-law, in his late 30s, he's been cycling since he was a teenager. And he usually, at least once or twice a week, he'll take a 20-mile bike ride. You know, I can't imagine that. But in 2 occasions over the years, and it's been, say, 20 years, but one's enough. But on 2 different occasions, someone's like throwing a Coke at him out the window or something like that. And it not only is it just annoying, but it's very dangerous. It really distracts somebody, and they're going 20 miles an hour along the edge of the road. And it's very dangerous. And it's pretty hard to change people's nature. If they can be, you can find out who they are and give them a message through the law, and that's one thing. It's just, I'm not saying it's just a fact of life, but it's something that I think, I don't know if we should have some kind of a public awareness program. And I know there's things out there that are already there that we can maybe latch on to and try something.
We feel that if it's business owners or employees of local businesses who are guilty of this behavior, that we put this up on social media, this can hurt their business a lot, because through the social media, we can touch virtually every person in the Outer Banks through sharing. And we feel that we're getting pushed into the position that we have to do that.
I mean, and as Assistant Chief said, I think the biggest thing is as soon as we can, if it's happening, I don't know how many runners would carry a cell phone with them or not, or cyclists, but at the, interrupting a workout to make that call as soon as possible is I think key to help us identify who these people are. And I understand what measures y'all are trying to go to, but I know law enforcement and getting them engaged as quickly as possible would help.
Several of us have spread that word across all the cycling and running communities to make sure first thing you do is call the police department. Quite often, however, and I've been the victim in some of these incidents, you're so busy protecting yourself that you don't get the license plate. You just can't do it. You can get the shape and sometimes the color of the vehicle, but most of the time you just can't get the license plate.
But I would think even if you could call with the make and model of the vehicle, especially if it's an instantaneous call, and you can say where it happened, then they could jump on that and respond. We may even have an officer nearby.
That's correct. especially if it's done in a vehicle, maybe that's out there at that time. Because our officers have been out there patrolling in the morning since I got the call about the incident, trying to catch the vehicle, but at this time, our officers hadn't seen anything occur, but yeah, it's just a matter of time that if they would call us when it does happen, and just with the vague description, we could stop it and just check and see if it is the vehicle.
One of the Silver Riders, which is the club that I'm associated with, was riding on Bay Drive. And a guy, and he out-of-state license plate this time, passed very close to him. He didn't give us the distance that's required by law. So at one of the stop signs on Bay, he pulled up to the guy and said, "You need to give me more room." The guy got out of the car and punched him and knocked him off the bicycle. And I said, "Barry, did you call the police?" "No." I said, "Why?" He said, "I went home and got in my truck and I went looking for the guy because I wanted to punch him back."
Oh, gosh.
And I said, wrong.
Right. Right. Well, if you would help spread the word back that don't feel like they have to have a license plate to call, make the call with as much information as they do have and as soon as they can. And then certainly I heard you loud and clear about trying to talk to some of the other municipalities on collaborative efforts. I do know NCDOT, and Meredith, you maybe help me where that is. NCDOT was working on the multimodal plan, right, with
Greg's actually going to be better at talking to you
Okay.
about the,
The comprehensive transportation plan.
Right, that did include, did it not, or is it not going to include an assessment or recommendations for multimodal
It is.
pathways?
There's limited, there's also a regional bicycle plan, and both of those documents are probably going to be crossing your desk here by the end of the year. I think November for the Albemarle Regional Bicycle Plan. However, the harassment or safety aspects of them, it's touched on a little bit, but it's not dwelled upon in those documents. They're more infrastructure type documents and planning documents for long term. So as far as improving the infrastructure and making it safer for the pedestrians and the bicycles, that's included. But I think what Mr. McCombs is talking about is behavioral, which is another issue altogether. I'm thinking the Outer Banks Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Coalition is also working on that, and Mr. McCombs has attended some of those meetings as well. So that's one of their goals, and their public awareness campaigns are in gear now and working for more over the winter. And maybe we can get Mr. McCombs to help us a little bit on that.
and both the plans, the Albemarle Regional Bike Plan and the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, both do look at regional transportation and connectivity, including multimodal connectivity on a broader scale rather than just our pedestrian plan that deals with the town of Kittle. It does address large areas and connectivity, so that will be something that we'll definitely be looking into when they're done.
And when they're done, they'll be presented at one of our commissioners' meetings.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think maybe by the end of the year.
That's the goal.
Okay.
I think education of our residents is terribly important. I'm sure that the vast majority do not have any idea of the economic impact of the cycle, particularly on the trades, people that are involved in trades in the tourist industry. And I'm sure that many of them would change their attitude towards cyclists if they really understood what's at stake here. And cooperative venture with other local governments, municipal and the county, I think would help that education effort.
I'm just going to reiterate about the safety issue just a little bit, because I know many of the people in that group, and I know y'all tend to ride a lot in the morning, especially in the early morning. And I know the hesitation to call because you don't have all that information, but I'll tell you, you're at an advantage in the fact that you are so early in the morning because there's less vehicles on the road. So even if you call with the fact that it's a blank vehicle that's blank color, that's a lot of information, even without the license plate number. So I just want to reiterate that information to everybody that that's a whole lot of information at 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning to get out to the police. Because if they're already out there patrolling, if they're anywhere near that area, the chances of them finding somebody are pretty high if they've got, you know, the specific color and a close make of the vehicle. So that's really, really important. I know we can't deter them from going after the person. I'd really like to. I'd like to reiterate that as well. That's a bad idea. But that's, you know, because again, cycling is a wonderful thing. We do that with senior games. It is, and that's a great group. It's grown tremendously in the last few years. So I see that as something that, and you and I have talked about this at great length. And kind of that moves into the multimodal transportation system. We've had this conversation too. The way the beach is made and the infrastructure, I don't see any reason why, if we don't work together with the other municipalities, that you could ride anywhere on a bike. I mean, the way it's designed. Well, for those of you that are in good shape, I couldn't do it. But I think that's what a lot of the folks who come here from other countries expect when they look at how we are and the way we're made. You know, the island's not that wide, and they think, oh well, I can ride a bike to work. I don't need a car. And it really should be that way. I think if things were designed properly, if we had the sidewalks and things were connected the way they should be, it should be such that you could ride to the grocery store and get a gallon of milk instead of having to get in your car and do that. So I greatly support the fact that we should work with that, and I think that's part of the CTP. So that's something I think we're all looking for.
All right. Who else has something they want to address with the board?
Can I comment on that? Just one
Certainly,
thing for
please do.
Zach, because it's something that we run into.
John's putting on his other hat.
Switch.
That's right.
And Jack, one problem that we run into at the police department, with calls like this, and the one that we get the most are careless and reckless drivers who drive crazy, and it brings the road rage on, and someone calls, and is that a lot of people don't understand that we as police officers just can't go out there and charge people. We need the person who is the complaining witness to agree to come to court and be a witness, because we can't testify from a report and we can't testify to what someone told us out on the street. And we're even limited in some crimes of being able to take any action because they occurred outside of our presence. And so as you're thinking about this and talking to other bicycle riders and getting that information out there, it's important to tell them that they've got to be part of the process if they want to pursue a criminal charge. And it's all fine for us to stop a car and shake our finger at somebody and say don't do that, but most grown-ups by that point know about how far that'll get you, and they're like, well, that's all that's going to happen. I'll just throw my Coke bottle and drive away a little bit faster. So I just wanted to bring that up as part of the process of especially the repetitive people that are doing it again and again. We need the help of the victim in the case to prosecute if that's the path that's going to be gone down.
I'll make sure that word gets out too. I almost forgot. 2 copies of the 10-year-old report. I'm going to leave it here with Mary. So it's for the Board of Commissioners, including some new members that'll come on board, one of which is maybe here tonight.
John, thank you for adding that. That's great. I think that is a point that is often overlooked. So thank you. Okay. All right. Who else has anything that they would like to address this evening? Any other items?
James Almany, 113 Porthole Court. I have a question. I think it's been 2 years now that we've reduced the speed limit through a certain area of our town. And if I remember correctly, we originally asked the DOT to reduce the speed limit to 45 through the entire town. And I'm wondering if we have any idea if the impact of the 45 miles an hour, has that lowered issues that we've had through that area? And if we do have that type of evidence, is it something that we'd be interested in going back and revisiting with the DOT and asking them, hey, we have this evidence now that has helped us, where the other towns maybe it hasn't helped?
Great question. I would have to defer to the police and see if we do have any information on that, or
He can't talk. He's got laryngitis. Really, he does. That's part. Basically, it's kind of hard to tell how the impact has been on it, because you have traffic that increases. You may have the same number of accidents, but with traffic increasing, it's actually less. So, but without getting into too much, the 45 to me has benefited in some of the wrecks not being as severe, because when traffic's moving slower and it does have a collision, it's a lot less damage done that way. So, but so far as numbers, we can come up with numbers, but say just for lower than 45 this time, I don't have those facts, but I'll try and see what I can find out.
thank you. Thanks for the question. Anyone else?
Anybody have any opinions on some of the issues that we've been discussing, like sidewalks, beach nourishment, bomb track?
Dog poop.
That's a sure way to fill this building.
I think to clarify, so people, if they haven't seen the most recent edition of the Coastland Times, what Jack was referencing is at our last meeting, which was the 13th or 14th, which may be where the date was confusing. There was a picture of Dare County Manager Bobby Alton, who was reporting on beach nourishment on the front page, and also there was a picture of Jack at public comment, speaking which he was bringing up two issues, one being someone inappropriately throwing dog waste on his property, and so they capture that on the front page of the Coastland Times, and that's what he was talking about, his mother, I guess.
Being so proud.
Yeah, being proud at that moment. Yes, Howard.
Howard Kimball, 803 West Sportsman Drive. There's a lesson to be learned here. If you're wanted by the law, don't get up here and speak, because your picture may be in the paper. So that's not what I come up here for. I know we're getting ready to move on toward beach nourishment, and I know there's going to be some costs and stuff involved there. But I just hope that that we don't, and I know with the formula that's been developed, there will be enough funds to cover that. But I just hope that we don't slow down on our projects like sidewalks and our maintenance on our oceanfront accesses and stuff, because money will probably get tight again. But I hope that the board has the courage to come up with the funds to continue the projects, such as our multi-use path that we just completed. And I walk it almost every day, and I still get, and these aren't visitors from out of town so much now as they are locals, but they're still commenting on what a wonderful job that is and what an asset that is to the town. So let's continue on. We've got 2 more sections. Let's try to get that done and get our sidewalks on the bypass. And that'll really make me happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
I think, would somebody help me on this, maybe Beverly or, I know Bill's pretty up on the beach nourishment thing. Am I correct in assuming that whatever portion of the taxes that are increased would be dedicated to that and wouldn't be used for anything else, or is that not a rule, so to speak, or a law?
We haven't made a rule like that. I think that's pretty much the understanding.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that something else can't happen, and sometimes it does. In Nags Head, for example, it has. So, but that does happen. We feel that with the proposal as currently that we signed up to at the last meeting, and as Bobby Alton has developed for all three communities, we will be able to accomplish that within the parameters of what we had discussed when we had our open forum regarding beach nourishment, and that is that we will be able to hold the increase on the town as a whole to 10%. Basically 3 cents is what we're sort of shooting at, and the balance of that will be paid by essentially doubling the taxes on the oceanfront owners' parcels that are directly in the benefited by the renourishment. And we had indicated that that was our hope. We wanted to be able to do that, and the way this has worked out, that is possible, and we are able to get this done within those parameters. So, but I also think that in our next meeting, I believe we're going to talk about the capital improvement program, are we not? And one of the things we might want to consider talking about there is some sort of a capital structure, because the question is going to come up. How much do we want to annually invest in capital improvements? And if we want to do that much, for example, if we want to start a regular program on sidewalks, for example, and I think we have an estimate of what the sidewalks are worth, and we can slice it into 10-year segments and all that sort of thing, but it'll work out to 100 or 200 or something of that order. Do we want to call forth and dedicate some portion of a capital improvements budget for that? And should that budget be derived from within the existing budget, or should it be derived from additional additions to the budget? I think that has to be discussed and taken under advisement. I just think that we'll need to consider that, because under our current budgets, we are tight, and we have been tight for 5 years. And we currently spend less per parcel than any other municipality here in the county in terms of what we spend for municipal services and government. Debbie can correct me, I'm sure, but I think it's about $1,700 per year per parcel that we spend, and that's quite a bit less than the next highest community. So if we're going to spend more, we're going to have to talk about what that means in terms of revenue.
And just for clarification, our next regular board meeting will be November 13th, which is a Wednesday night, but we have scheduled a special meeting to discuss our capital improvement plan.
That's a separate meeting, isn't it?
It's a separate meeting, which is Friday, November 15th at 9 a.m. And it's an open meeting, and it's really going to be a work session. So we're going to be kind of looking at what options we have. First, prioritizing all the capital projects that have been put forward, and some of the accounts that we haven't been funding for the last number of years. Those would certainly be looked at that same time too. And then, how do we, after prioritizing those, how do we try to fund those? So it's going to be a pretty interesting and complicated, so to speak, workshop. But Howard, I appreciate what you stood up and said, and when you talk about us having the courage, it helps us know what the citizens want when we hear from the citizens. So, thank you.
And I'll just add one thing, and Beverly, correct me if I'm wrong, but the one good thing, one of the good things about going forward with beach nourishment is that in the, no nice way, but it's the wacky way that they do the cost sharing analogy with the pieces of pie that you always hear us talking about for cost share. That particular, at that particular time when we actually do that, we'll actually, that's actually a benefit for us at that point in time. Now, it also will be for Kitty Hawk and Duck, but it's gonna be really unfortunate for Manio and Southern Shores and Nags Head that year. But just as it was when Nags Head did it, if you remember that one particular year, Nags Head's their piece of the pie went up significantly that year when they did beach nourishment. So that's something to keep in mind. When our taxes are going up that year, our piece of the pie also goes up significantly at that point in time. So that's a good part of that. That's a good thing about that cost share analysis. I don't particularly agree with the way that's done. I think it's a little antiquated, and we in particular don't benefit from that, and the fact that we have the largest tax base, but that's beside the point. I don't know that it's going to change. So, but that's something to keep in mind when that happens.
Yeah, another thing too, speaking of revenue, I know I can tell you from my experiences here in the last 2 budgets, and as a matter of fact, even prior to that, when I was contemplating, running for office, I got a copy of the budget from Beverly. So that's going back 3 budgets, and I've looked at them and I scrutinized them, and unless you start cutting down on pencil and paper, there's really hardly anywhere to go as far as cutting. It was cut to the bone and it stayed there, and it's even gone down some over the past 5 years. So my personal feeling is that when you look around the town and you see what you see, you see the bypass with the stuttering sidewalks and the streets, which the budget's been cut for the last 5 years. And some of the things that we want to do don't necessarily have to do, but it's amenities for the town. You look out there and see what's here, and if there isn't something, revenue has to be part of the triangle of the budget. There's different things you have to do, and that revenue has to be part of that at some point. So if you don't address that, whatever you see out here is as good as it's going to get, and if you don't address it, it's going to get worse. So eventually, you have to bite the bullet with the old cliche and decide that we're finally, and things are getting a little better economically, so maybe we can do that at some point. But we cut the streets budget, and I think it's important that we take a close look at that. And it would be a good time, like Brandi said, it would be a good time to look at that and see if there's some funds, because of the increase in the share of revenue, that we can put towards some of these funds that we haven't been putting money into the last few years.
Another possibility is, I think that Duck has a SIP program where they actually have planned expenditures on a recurring basis. Like I think their current project is to finish the boardwalk along the Sound on the southern edge or something of that sort. And I think they have 2 or 3 cents of their budget dedicated to capital improvements. And maybe if Beverly, if you talk to their finance officer, or Debbie, you could talk to their town manager and talk about how do they go about doing that, and talking about it, planning on it. Because, Duck, before they started talking about beach nourishment, and they started talking about some of these amenities that they've been building over the last several years, their tax rate was down around 17 cents or so, which is where it would be to generate revenue for the kinds of things we do in municipalities, and their tax base is roughly, their average value per parcel is roughly twice as ours, so you would expect their tax rate to be roughly half ours, and that's what it was. But they then consciously added 2 cents for beach nourishment, for example, which they took a jump on. And then I also think they have some of this other money that they did, and I'm not sure, but I believe they have actually dedicated it for capital improvements, such as the boardwalk, their stage and public events venue area, that sort of thing.
The town has actually done that in the past.
when it was determined that the citizens did not want to do a bond referendum for street improvements, the board at that time did what was equivalent to a nickel, 5 cents, and you set up a capital reserve ordinance.
Mhm.
So we know how to
We
do
know-
that.
we have done
We
that
have done
too.
that in the past.
Yeah.
It just, some of those items like shoreline and recreation just stopped being funded. But the board would earmark monies for
Yeah,
that particular
yeah.
reason. Yes.
Well, maybe if we talk to some folks who have done it different ways, that would give us some ideas when we get a chance to talk about it, just to, you know, if we want to consider any of those.
What they've done, if some of you haven't been up there and really kind of looked around and gone on their boardwalk and some other, their park and things, what they've done up there is amazing. Considering relatively recently, since they've been incorporated. And of course, recently, some of you may not have heard that NAGSED purchased the Dowdy piece of property there. And NAGSED also got in partnership with the acreage down there where they hold the seafood festival. And they've been doing things, even with the economy the way it's been, they've been more aggressive in trying to improve the town for everybody, even the locals, which sometimes people forget about us. And you know, Duck's doing it, and NAGSED's doing it, and you know, Manio has their first Fridays, and they have Festival Park and all that kind of stuff. And I think because we're the center of the Outer Banks, we're the biggest town. We have the most, we generate the most revenue out of the whole county for occupancy and food taxes and such. And the people that come here, I think, what we do too, the people that come here, I think deserve something that would kind of match what this place is like. And we don't want to be bracketed by towns that are doing wonderful things, and we're kind of here in the middle. And but it always comes to money. So referring back to my previous statement, really. But I've had that feeling for a long time that watching things going on around you is not going on here. I'd like to see that happen someday, whenever we can.
Right. Susan and Beverly.
Hi, my name is Sue Kelly, and I live at 211 Sea Village Lane. Last year at this hearing, which was October 24th last year, I took 5 pages of really detailed notes of people's comments, and they became the basis of what the brand new Community Appearance Commission addressed in its first 6 months or so of existence. So I stand up here hoping that maybe some of you might want to address some appearance issues in our town. And if so, we welcome to hear them.
So anyone, before we move on to Beverly's questions, does anyone have anything that they, appearance related in the town that they want to bring up at this forum? And Sue, thank you. Sue is the chair of the Community Appearance Commission.
And Melinda is a member, she's here
Yeah,
too.
Melinda came in, thank you, yes, is a member. And that group it's a great group. You did a great job leading that group. I know we have a meeting tomorrow morning, actually. And several big projects in the works. And certainly several big things that they've already addressed that have come before the Board of Commissioners. But does anyone have anything community appearance related?
I do, but it's so minor, I feel silly for bringing it up. I love yard sales and I love all those posted signs, but you notice they do come back and get their sign, but there's like a gajillion nails and staples and paper and trash that's still left. I don't know how you can police that or how you can address it unless you do metal poles versus the wood. I don't even know if that's an option. But when you're sitting there at the stoplight, that's what I continue to look at for some crazy reason, because I have OCD, I'm sure.
Well, it's good to bring it up, and it could be something, I don't know how you police it, but it's certainly something like, you know, we're gonna be, in the spring hosting a trash attack. And that's something that you could put, whoever's taking that segment, you know, some people, if you don't draw their attention to it, may not focus on that. So, awareness is a great thing.
The committee, tomorrow morning's meeting, it's on the agenda to discuss outdoor display and signage and a few other items. And anybody's been around a while knows we've been talking about outdoor display for 20 years. And signage to some extent, because it looks maybe kind of cluttered, and some people might like to see that changed. And unfortunately, a lot of times when it was discussed, when I was on the planning board, and even when it was touched on a few times here in the last couple of years, year and a half, there's hardly anybody here, so nobody hears about it. So we don't get a whole lot of input for, I mean, did people care about outdoor display? Did they care about how many signs they are and what color they are, and if they have lights on them and things? We really need input in order to do these things the right way, the way that the people want them. So feel free, let us know what you think. Come to the meetings like tomorrow. It might be, not everybody can make every meeting, obviously, because there are different times and people are focused. We'd really like to hear how you feel on those issues. Oh, yeah,
Yes.
sure, you can
If you
email.
can't come, or if you're not able to attend the meeting, you can always email. Especially for those watching, maybe that's the most effective way for you. You can email your comments to the town.
If something happy by you, can email me, otherwise.
Okay.
You can take it.
Thanks. Beverly, did you want to?
Good evening, I'm Beverly Gwen Boswell, that's 1705 Sunset Avenue. First of all, I do want to thank the town, y'all are great. Thank you, Howard, for your comments. That's one of my deepest concerns is about beach nourishment. Hot topic, everybody wants it, except for me. I'm not that crazy about it, and I have reasons, but that's beside the point. I'm so afraid that we're going to be so focused on beach nourishment that everything else is going to fall behind, such as the repairs of the streets, the completion of the flood zones, and the bike path, which we want to continue to do, and the sidewalks. That's my biggest fear with the beach nourishment project and how much money is being sunken into it. Thank you.
Well, I think we know pretty well how much we're going to pump into it. It is going to be a design to cost project because there is no more money. The county has no more. We have no more. And I don't think that, at least on the present board, there isn't anybody who's willing to go beyond what we've already indicated we were willing to go to. But I think that the concern that everybody has about its impact on other things, I think that what it might inhibit is new investment. I don't think it will inhibit continued maintenance of the streets. I think that program is sound. I think our continued programs are relatively sound, but I think that we do have several areas where we want to consider new investment. And I think there's going to be some reluctance to go with new investment where we are already committing essentially 10% of the tax rate to beach nourishment for a 5-year period.
Not just it's ongoing, so it's not just 5 years. I mean, although re-nourishment will cost less, it's still ongoing.
That's right. But it isn't going to be 10%. It'll be
correct.
Less. It'll be less than that. But so I think that we do have to discuss this when we do our tip, because for example, let's say we wanted to add $100 per year per parcel for community investment in things like sidewalks and bicycle paths and that sort of thing. That would be $750,000, and we would have to raise half of that through the. We have to raise half of our revenue through taxes, and half comes through our other revenues and so forth, so shared revenues and designated revenues and all of the different types of revenues we have. But we would have to, if we were to get $750,000 a year annually for a new capital investment, we would have to raise something like $350,000 or $400,000 of that in new taxes, and that's 1 or 2 cents on the rate. So having already gone 3 cents on the rate, how willing are we going to be to go another 2? I mean, that has to be discussed. And, it's not that it will put us on the spendthrift league. There will, we're not going to lose our place as the community that spends the least per parcel. By any means, we're not going to no longer be the thriftiest town on the beach, but it'll hurt, and people will notice and complain. So yes, she's right in that respect. We do have to think about
it. Since I changed my opinion on beach nourishment, and I did after a series of meetings here, when I really understood how it was to be paid for, and I think that's important. If it wasn't done, what we would lose. To me, the beach nourishment protects our land. And without it, we run the risk of not being able to do anything that we want to do. I certainly want to see more infrastructure for cycling.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't have a beach,
mm-hmm.
we're not going to be able to do anything.
We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have a place to work.
That's right. And we're not only going to lose a lot of services, we're going to be out of business virtually.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't, what a lot of people don't understand, I think, is we nourish the beach. That doesn't mean that we're protected forever. If we ever get hit by a Katrina-type hurricane, I mean, we're not going to be living here anymore. For a long, long time. So, realizing that most of us, I hope, realize it's not foolproof, but at least it's a reasonable step at reasonable cost to protect what makes it possible for us to live in the Outer Banks and to attract tourists to the Outer Banks.
Okay. What else, anything else that they want to discuss tonight?
Doing good.
I would love to think that's what it is, too, you know? Any other topics that anyone has?
I'd like to once again emphasize how important it is for us, and I mean, for me personally, it's really important for me to know what the people think, because we do make some of the stuff we do may be regarded as not trivial, but not as important as some other things. But it's something that hit me when we had our one meeting before. We were talking about joining up with the other communities, and we were talking about $15 to $20 million or something overall, what it would cost us for what we wanted to do. And we were saying, well, okay, we need to do it. And I went home, and my ex-wife says, how was the meeting? And I said, we just voted to spend maybe $20 million. And when we do stuff like that, I should speak for myself, I like to know how the people feel about it. Did we do the right thing? Are we doing the right thing? So I wouldn't say it's a heavy burden, but it is, it kind of hits you sometimes how important what we do is. I'm not bragging, I don't mean that to say, oh, we're great or something. What we do is, there's 4 people making decisions that affect 7,000, if you look at it that way. So it's pretty important that we know how you feel and what you want us to do. Sometimes we may do it, sometimes not.
And on that note, I appreciate, as I'm sure my colleagues up here do, those of you who do make such a concerted effort to get here and to support what's going on in your town and to be vocal about things and engaged. So thank you all for that. I feel like it's a lot of our old faithfuls in the room tonight, and just thank you, because at least we have sounding boards. We may not hear from a large populace, but we do have sounding boards, and I personally appreciate those of you who are my sounding boards that are faithful servants in our community, and I appreciate that.
And I want to say thank you, not only to those of you from the public that are here, but to the staff that are always here, because not only are you here, but you're there when I call you to ask you questions, so I don't look absolutely ignorant when I'm up here talking. Meredith especially, Greg, yeah, you're the two I call the most, so just thank you, because we are extremely blessed here in Kill Devil Hills to have tremendous staff. I just can't tell you how wonderful they are to work with, how I've not ever it's just amazing how intelligent and wonderful and happy they are to be here. So it's great to work with people who are.
And it's up to you folks to make sure they're compensated well enough that they're not attracted to other jobs.
Should they talk to us about that in session?
How much were you paid for that comment?
We had I've told Kevin this before, and I feel the same way about every staffer in this room right now. We have an outstanding staff.
We do.
And I worry that their compensation package, and I'm not making a joke now, that we have to be competitive with their compensation packages, because these people are talented and they're not ball and chained to Kill Devil Hills.
Yeah, we don't have any shovel vendors, like anywhere you go, whatever department it is, it's public works, buildings and roads, and all the people they don't have shovels that they can lean on a desk or something, but they don't do that, I'm here a lot, probably too often. They say, oh, you're here for your daily visit. But I like to keep up on things, and I've never seen a bit of evidence, and that's the truth, that there's anything going on that would indicate that they're not doing it. I'm really happy about that.
We're hoping the praise helps a lot. We compensate them with what we can, but
Warm fuzzies are really important,
yes,
but so is compensation.
Well, if doesn't have anything else to contribute, I guess we can make a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
For a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion from
Yes,
anyone?
I want to say one
Yes.
thing. At our last forum, we talked about how we could try to get more people to come to meetings, and I suggested margaritas, and they wouldn't go along with it. So I didn't bother bringing it up this time, but if you ever want that, let us know.
Well, you have too much now.
It
was prohibited on
I'm going to defer to the attorney.
Yeah, I was going to say that. He says I can't vote on that. He's going to abstain, right?
Call the roll to adjourn. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
All right, be careful.